Seventh graders, happy Hat Day and happy Wednesday. Hope you're having a marvelous week so far. We're now hitting the middle of it. Let's rock and roll as we're looking at the Declaration of Independence today. First thing we're going to do for this lesson is we're going to analyze some debates in the Second Continental Congress that went on before the vote on independence. The articles on Discovery never really got into this, and it feels some important content, so I want to touch on it. Then we're going to start analyzing the meaning of some key passages of the Declaration of Independence, focusing mostly on the preamble of the Declaration. We're also going to look at how is the Declaration of Independence made up? What are its parts? So, Jefferson is told to write the Declaration of Independence. It doesn't happen right away. In fact, he sits on it for weeks and pretty much has writer's block. He wanted to go home. He didn't want to be in Philadelphia. He had been away from his home, Monticello, for a very long time. He wanted to go back to his home, see his wife. He missed her and was pretty much angry and miserable and wasn't working. And Adams, in one of his future moments of empathy, has an idea, and he arranges for Jefferson's wife, Martha, to make her way up to Philadelphia and spend with him. Reunited, Jefferson then starts writing, and he composes something brilliant. But his won't be the only pen in this. I mentioned how Adams and Franklin had done some editing of it, but the real editing comes by the Congress during the debates leading up to the vote. Many different sections of the Declaration of Independence are stricken, written out, crossed out. I always imagine this. When we look at the Declaration of Independence, it's really a masterpiece of political writing. It is one of the greatest political expositories ever put together. It's poetic and powerful and it's glorious. Jefferson really made something that belongs not just to America but to humanity. And here he just made this masterpiece, and now he has to allow 50 plus other people to cut, cross out, reword parts of it. I always think of Van Gogh finishing Starry Night and stepping back to look at it, and all of a sudden 50 other artists get to now start messing with it and rearranging it. I wouldn't feel very good about that. But in order to get a unanimous vote, they have to make some concessions. Unanimous. Remember, they can't get a no vote on independence. One of the big concessions that they deal with is they take the language that Thomas Jefferson wrote condemning the king and England for bringing slavery to America and condemning slavery as an evil institution. Well, the Southerners who owned slaves didn't really shine on that and weren't willing to sign on to the Declaration with that. And they leave the problem of slavery for future generations to deal with. Jefferson himself, the man who writes the words that all men are created equal, will go and leave slavery as part of his life for the rest of his life. He will own slaves. Even though he writes about how he feels that is an abomination, he won't give up slavery himself and leaves it for future generations to deal with. That with other compromises, eventually they are able to get 12 of the 13 agree to say yes. And they get New York to agree to abstain from voting, to not vote. New York, remember, had a more loyalist population. So in order to get them to not be a no vote, they had them be a non-vote. So 12 of the 13 vote yes, nobody votes no, and the motion for independence gets passed. It actually happens, the independence vote happens on July 2nd, We celebrate July 4th because that's the date it's officially adopted and made public. Hence why we celebrate our birthday on the 4th of July. Really, our Declaration of Independence happened on July 2nd. Adams himself thought we would be celebrating the day with fireworks and parades, but of course he thought that day would be July 2nd. So now let's start looking up the parts of the Declaration. The first section, the preamble, is a bit of an introduction. It's an opening statement, and it basically says that this isn't just a struggle of 13 colonies against England. This is a struggle for human rights. The forces of tyranny, in this time England, have oppressed the people of these colonies. And on behalf of oppressed people, they are standing up and fighting for what are natural human rights. With that moral justification, the second section, the grievances, the complaints, recount how America was attacked by the king and the parliament, how their rights were abused, how the Americans were horribly mistreated, and what has pushed them to the point where they have to call for independence. And lastly, the formal declaration is the last section. It is small, but is the official announcement that to the world that there is a new nation that exists, that the United States of America has come to be. In fact, is the Declaration of Independence that the words the United States of America will be first used in describing the people of the 13 now states. So let's start looking at the sections, and that's what your article was doing. And what I did was I took some of Jefferson's actual words and put them side by side with a kind of a basic explanation of what's being said. So the introduction says, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for the people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, a decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Jefferson's basically giving a justification of why the Declaration was written in this section, and uses the word necessary. Something is necessary, something that we have to do. They've been left no choice. So, of course, human events, when it becomes necessary in history, when one group of people have to dissolve or break away the political bands that have connected them with another, out of respect for the rest of the world, you should give your reasons why.